April 10th, Planning Commission meeting together.
Recording in progress.
Thank you. My name is Joe Sullivan. I serve as the chair of the commission. Just a reminder to silence your phones and other electronic devices. Would you call the roll, City Planner?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Sears?
Here.
Heigl?
Here.
Strand? Selton?
Here.
Mayor Stani?
Here.
Buck? Einfeld Brown?
Present.
Johnson? And Schultz?
Here.
Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Next is approval of the previous meeting minutes. First order of business will be to approve the minutes from our March 13th meeting. I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Commissioner
minutes.
Heigl,
As stated, no corrections.
Commissioner Hagel makes a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Commissioner Brown seconds it. Any further discussion?
I wasn't present at the last meeting, so I can't vote.
You're going to abstain?
Yep.
Okay. You'd like to take a roll call? Dan?
Sure, well, sure. Sears?
Abstain?
Heigl?
Yay.
Selton?
Yes.
Mayor Stani?
Yay.
Einfeld Brown?
Aye.
And Schultz.
Aye.
Minutes are approved.
Thank you. Next is public hearings. The process of the public hearing is as follows. The city planner will present a summary of his report. The commissioners may ask questions of the planner. Then we will hear from the applicant and commissioners may ask questions of the applicant. After that, we'll invite public comment. If you wish to speak, you need to sign on the green cards in the entryway and give the card to the city planner, and when you come in to testify, please state your name and address for the record. First public hearing we'll listen to is the subdivision preliminary plat and rezoning the planned development request from Hampton Companies for proposed townhomes at 3401 to 3415 Douglas Drive North. Application number 2023-03. Planner Olson, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Yes, as you said, tonight is a public hearing for townhome development. This is a two-part approval. The first is a rezoning to planned development. The second is a recommendation for approval of a preliminary plat for the site. So this on your screen here is a map showing the subject property in blue, and the other properties in pink there are the properties that received a notice of tonight's meeting. And also the same group received a notice of the community open house that was held a few weeks ago. So I posted the notice in the Sun Post on the city website, and also to all neighborhoods, all Crystal neighborhoods next door. Here is a comparison of two aerial photos. The first is from 2009. This is the site prior to the demolition of the gas station and the commercial building on the north of the gas station. The other photo is a more recent photo of the site, and this is what it looks like today. It's just a vacant lot. So Hampton Companies is proposing to purchase the vacant property from the city's Economic Development Authority. They are proposing to construct 2 4-unit townhome buildings for a total of 8 units. As I said earlier, Hampton is requesting to rezone the property from its current zoning, which is medium-density residential, or R2, to planned development with a R2 underlying zoning. Hampton proposes also to replat the 2 lots into 8 townhome lots and 1 common lot for the development. The property is designated as medium-density residential in the comprehensive plan, which is a range of 6 to 16 units per acre. The proposed density fits in with that. It's 7 units per gross acre. Here is a site plan for the project. Okay. I'll point a few things out here. Here is the north townhome building with 4 units. And then here is the south townhome unit with also 4 units. The driveway location here is off of 34th on the south. And then there are 9 surface parking spaces in the back of the property. All these units have attached garages that are accessed off of this driveway. Here is the preliminary plat for the development. It shows the 2, this is lots 1 through 4, block 1. This is for the north building. This is lots 1 through 4, block 2 of the south building, and then this outlot A is all the common area for the development that will be owned by the homeowners association. This is just a general description of the townhomes themselves. First, one question that I get asked a lot is, are these going to be owned or rented? Hampton has indicated that they will determine if these market rate townhomes will be owner occupied or rented once they complete construction. So that's when they'll make the decision. Building height is 2-story or 25 feet in height. The size of each unit, it's 700 square feet of living space on the main floor and 1,100 square feet of living space on the upper floor for a total of 1,800 square feet per unit. They will each have 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths. As I said, there's an attached garage for each unit, approximately 400 square feet for each garage. There will be no basements. It'll be slab on grade. There will be patios for each unit as well. So here is on the top of the screen is what the building will look like facing Douglas Drive. You can see the patio doors on each unit. On the bottom elevation is what it would look like from facing the driveway or the parking lot. It's the west elevation accessing the garage units themselves. The top elevation there is facing 34th as you're driving along there, and then the bottom elevation is facing the townhomes to the north. The PD zoning, as you know, allows for customized setbacks, or customized zoning, really. But in this case, what the applicant is requesting is customized setbacks and lot dimensions. So on this table, which is in your packet, of course, I have shown on my left, I think it's your right, it's the standard R2 requirements for both building setbacks and for lot dimensions, and then on my right, your left, it shows the proposed R2 PD requirements for this particular townhome development. So the proposed, I'll focus on that, is 23 feet to this, from the property line to the south. To the east, which is along Douglas Drive, that will be 13 feet, so they'll be pushed closer to Douglas, and then 10 feet on the north. The west setback is met because I think it's about 47 feet. So that setback is met. Between the units themselves, they're in 2 buildings. These are what's called zero lot line, meaning they're right up against each other. There's no space between the units, the 4 units. There is a 10-foot space between the north and the south unit, or buildings, I should say. As far as lot dimensions, there will be a little variety in the lot area. They're either 1534 square feet or 1654 square feet, for a total of, well, the whole lot is about a little over 30,000 square feet. Each lot townhome will be 61 feet in width, or depth, I'm sorry, 109 feet for the site. Each townhome lot will be 25 to 27 feet in width, 243 feet for the entire site. So parking, as I said, each townhome will have a 2-car attached garage with a driveway access from 34th. The site plan also provides for 9 surface parking spaces, providing overflow parking or visitor parking, because there's no overnight parking on the streets. There's no parking at all on Douglas. So, stormwater management will be managed by a drainage swale along the north property line and a trench drain within the driveway just south of the parking spaces. Impervious surface will be 68%, which meets the maximum of 75%, and represents a reduction from the 82% coverage of the previous use. You saw the 2009 aerial photo. The site was almost all hard surface, so it's been reduced from that. It's definitely more than it is now, because right now it's just a grassed vacant lot. So erosion control members, as always, will be in place during construction. Utilities, the townhomes will connect with existing water and sewer. There will be a new water connection in 34th to provide an alternate looped system for the townhomes.
What is a looped system? I just don't.
So it's there's a water main in Douglas, and so it'll loop it'll kind of loop around the site, or the buildings, I should say, to provide an alternate supply of water in case the connection in Douglas is interrupted for some reason. Maybe there's a water main break or something. There will be new drainage and utility easements that will be dedicated on the plat as well. As far as landscaping, 12 new trees are going to be planted. There really are no trees on the site now. There's a few along the north property line, but it's pretty much vacant. Some of the trees are listed there, which that'll be planted. There'll be 9 varieties of shrubs, including those that will screen the building foundation along Douglas and along 34th. There will not be any pole lights on the property, but there will be some wall fixtures. The applicant is still tweaking the exterior lighting plan, but one of the conditions of approval is to submit a complete exterior lighting plan that is in compliance with our UDC. Planned developments have 2 standards that are relevant to this development. First is that it complies with the minimum site area. The finding here is that the property meets the minimum site area because it is located in a redevelopment area, according to the comprehensive plan, and is also on a minor arterial street, which are the criteria in our comprehensive plan. The requirement to, the second development standard is that the requirement to provide a private recreational area is not applicable to this development. The finding here is that the property is too small to provide a private recreational area, and that there are 2 city parks within half a mile of these townhomes. These are the recommended findings for recommending approval of the subdivision. There's 3 criteria in the UDC. First, that the subdivision complies with the UDC. If the property is rezoned to PD, then it will be in compliance with the UDC requirements. The second is the subdivision is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. The finding here is that it does meet the density requirements of the medium density residential land use category. The third criteria here is that the physical characteristics of the site are conducive to the intended use. So the characteristics of the site are conducive to the construction of townhomes. It's a fairly flat lot, so there's nothing here that would make that prohibitive. So staff is recommending approval of both the subdivision and the rezoning to R2 PD. with the conditions in the staff report. Tonight, you are being asked to hold a public hearing to receive comments, and then also to consider making a recommendation of approval of the subdivision or preliminary plat and the rezoning applications. So I'm available for questions. I see that Dan Brown, representing Hampton, is also on the Zoom call, so he's available for questions as well, and then I'm available for questions too.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Schultz?
I have a question about the west setback. Could you repeat the measurements? You said it wasn't applicable, that it needed to be changed. I would just like to know what the measurement is.
Sure. I believe it's 47 feet is what it is proposed for the townhomes.
But that wouldn't be both structures because
Yeah, that would be measured from the smallest distance. So it'd be the south townhome unit to the west property line.
So there's 47 feet from the townhome to the property line on the west side. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
47 feet, yes.
And there's 13 feet from the townhome to Douglas. Is that correct?
Correct. So when the applicant is asking for approval of the setbacks, you know, they're custom made for this development. There's no need to request a setback variance, so to speak, or variation from the west setback, because it does meet what is normally found in the R2 district.
But the east setback is not correct.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner, or Mr. Sutter?
Mr. Chair, thank you, members of the commission. I just want to clarify that setback, 13 was it, from the east, is after this, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but after this 7 feet is dedicated to Hennepin County.
Correct.
Right now, the right-of-way line is basically right at the edge of the sidewalk. The county's standard requirement, request, I guess depending on how you look at it, is for an additional 7 feet in case they want to put a trail there someday or something. So that 13 feet from the buildings to the new Douglas lot line is here.
That's correct.
Or this dashed line here, which is the new right-of-way line. The current right-of-way line is actually another 7 feet further east. So if you're wondering about where the building wall is relative to the existing sidewalk on Douglas, that distance is 13 plus 7 or 20 feet, if that helps you visualize it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hagel?
Yeah, Dan, there's trees all along or proposed to be planted on the east side.
Yes.
All right, now, we got a sidewalk there. You got the county right away. How much area do you have between the county right-of-way line and those buildings to put trees in?
Right. Immediately in front of the patio line, there's a new 5-foot drainage and utility easement, which is it's part of Outlot A. Mm-hmm. So the trees will be planted within that 5-foot wide easement.
Well, the question I have is they listed a swamp white oak that grows fairly big.
Not in our lifetime.
Okay.
Not our lifetime.
Yeah. I don't know about you, Joe. I plan on it, but anyway. You figure there's enough area in there for a tree that size?
Well, I would maybe defer to the applicant to respond to that, what they think about that particular question.
All right.
Mr. Brown?
Sure. Hi, thank you for your time tonight. I'm Dan Brown with Hampton Companies. We are open to reducing the size of the trees. We had a landscape architect look at the plan and helped us with the selections. So you brought up a good point. I believe, Dan Olson, is it 6 feet or 5 feet for that new drainage utility easement?
It's 5 feet wide.
Okay. I don't have it up in front of me. So we are open to making a change to trees that would maybe fit in there a little bit better size-wise, even after maturity.
Included here?
Okay,
I was just asking if you included yours.
Let her go, let her go.
Maybe I could just, if you'd like to make that a condition of your recommendation to swap out that tree, that you can do that later on when you're making the recommendation.
Okay.
Mr. Marisani.
I know there's a hill as you're going south on Douglas, over that area. And I'm worried that the building being so close to the edge there and 2 stories will affect visibility, and along with the trees, again, that's gonna affect visibility for the cars on 34th going in and out. Well, I mean, coming in, I guess isn't so bad, but going out, making left or right turns on 34th. Do we know if there's been any concern over that? Because the cars go pretty fast on Douglas headed south.
That has not come up at the open house or with the applicant, discussions with the applicant, I should say. There is what's called a visibility triangle requirement, and that's measured along the curb. So we regulate what is involved, what can be put in that visibility triangle. No shrubs over 30 inches. Trees have to be at least, the lowest branches have to be at least 8 feet from the ground. But I don't envision that there would be issues with that.
Well, I'm just thinking how we regulate where fences can get put, and especially fences that block visibility. The trees initially, as they're small, are going to block visibility, and they're closer than a fence, kind of, to the road. So it's, yeah, I have that concern. Also, there's a bus stop on that corner. Is something going to be, there's a bench there too. Is that going to remain there, or is that going to have to be moved?
That bench will remain, yes.
Any further questions?
It might be on, let me see if it's,
Any further questions?
Oh, we're over here.
Commissioner Marisani.
Also, I know it's not a big deal right now, but snow removal for the property, where is that going to end up being?
snow removal is anticipated to occur, let me see here, up in this area, and then there's going to be a stormwater, that's what I'm looking for, swale up in this area, so that's an area where snow could be stored as well.
How is that going to affect the parking lot on the property to the north? Because that's where their parking lot is.
Well, they should only be storing snow on their property, this property, I should say. So they should not be pushing it onto the neighbor's property.
The hill is naturally going to use gravity to pull it down. So I'm just saying that that's a concern for the people to the north.
Mr. Sutter.
My understanding is that the swale will be graded to carry the water towards the east.
So
And so that there will be, the northerly edge of the swale of the property line will be the high point, so that water, it won't just be sloping north towards the townhomes parking lot. It'll be sort of intercepted and diverted to the east.
So it will go over to Douglas right away then?
Yes, you can see it in the grading plan, the contours.
Okay.
Yeah, this is 889, this is an 890 here, this is 894.
Mr. Chair, do you see how Commissioners, do you see how the contours are shaped in that area? along the north lot line. They sort of point uphill, sort of curved. That means that the middle of that space is lower than the edges, and it's flowing to the right, to the east.
Have any further questions, Commissioner? Commissioner Hagel?
The entrance to these places, is there an entrance off the front, or did I miss it?
There is a patio door, so there's a patio in front of each.
So that's going to be the, okay, and then you got.
I think the main entrance will actually be off the back.
Off the
You can
back.
see the doors on that elevation.
Commissioner Marisani?
So then, do we care about this fitting with the, I don't know, consistency of the neighborhood and appearance? Because basically, these are houses that are turned backwards. You know what I mean? So the rest of the houses in the area have their front door facing the major roads, so Douglas or 34th or things like that. These are backwards houses in comparison to that. So do we care about it matching the surrounding buildings that are already there?
There's a multiple high, medium density dwelling right next door, and they're lengthwise on there, so they aren't up there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know what one you're talking about, but it also, that one is set back further. It's not as close to the sidewalk and to the road as this building is being asked to be. So I feel like it might stand out like a sore thumb in comparison to the rest of the properties in the area.
That the view, the east view in the architect's plan has a decorum of being in the front. It's architectural appealing. It just happens to be a patio door, but there's a lot of homes that have large doors too, but the street facing townhouse has architectural appealing as being front.
I would also add that this area on this side of the street, first of all, Douglas is a pretty wide right-of-way, so you're not necessarily looking at both east and west sides together as a unit, so to speak. And on the west side, which is where these will be located, there are other very similar type uses, as was pointed out. There's townhomes that face the south, would be the garage doors face south.
Mm-hmm.
Just directly north of
Yeah.
there. Then north of that is sweet living, assisted living. So there's not necessarily any single-family homes along this area, along Douglas that are sort of interacting with Douglas.
Yeah, you have to go across the street for this.
So to me, you're not going to be necessarily, because of the wide distance of Douglas and that right-of-way, you're not necessarily comparing those to each other. And also, I think there will be landscaping in front of the elevations facing Douglas. They will have this patio door, which serves as a sort of an entry as well.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Sutter?
So Commissioner Maristani it's a very good point. We did internally talk about this quite a bit. Ideally, these townhomes would have more of an urban form with the front door facing Douglas. Unfortunately, because it's a county road with no on-street parking permitted by the county, and believe me, we've tried in other contexts to try to get them to be a little more open-minded about that. But the reality is that if we were to have if the developer were to have front doors facing Douglas, they would be mostly for decoration, or they would encourage illegal parking on Douglas in front of the units. So if Douglas were not a county road and were just a regular city street where on-street parking was permitted, there's no question that we would have pushed the developer to have the front doors facing directly to the street. But in this particular context on this site, with all the rules that the county has for their roads, configuration was sort of the next best option in our view.
Commissioner Marisani.
Well, I also have a concern with them being patio doors because patio doors are generally glass. And so then that could become a safety concern since they're so close to people walking by and everything like that. In the nighttime, somebody with a baseball bat, if they were set on destruction, I mean, you just start going by and breaking the patio doors and those are glass and so they'll, shatter. I'm sure it's going to be tempered glass so it won't be so bad, but it's still, I think a safety concern where normally you have a solid core door facing areas where people are walking so that you're not, so that it's if someone comes along to smash something, you're not going to go through a solid core door the way you would through a glass door, you know what I mean?
Yeah, do you have any comment?
Well, I could ask the applicant if he has any comments, but to me, this wide sidewalk is not used that much. There's not a lot of pedestrian traffic along Douglas going down these sidewalks, so I don't think it will be an issue. It's not in a highly urbanized area where there's a lot of pedestrians.
But you just said that the reason that we didn't need to have a yard in these things was so that people could walk by, so that they could go to the parks. And then as I was down there today, just looking at everything, I did see pedestrians walking, around the blocks and everything like that. So this is an area that does get foot traffic, especially with the new bakery and the restaurant that's just down the street. I imagine now that the weather's getting nicer, you're going to start seeing more foot traffic through the area.
Sure.
Say, Dan, I can answer that question also, if it's okay.
Mr. Brown, go ahead.
So we do have a 5-foot decorative fence between the sidewalk and our patios. So we do have a fence in there already. There's one open sidewalk that'll tie our parking lot back to Douglas, or to the sidewalk on Douglas. We did that for emergency vehicles or emergency access. So if there was ever an emergency vehicles could park on Douglas and have access to the other side of the buildings easily. But we do have a 5-foot tall fence across the back of the rest of the way across the back of the buildings.
So basically, to make this a PD district and to get this building here as is, we're throwing out all of the standards we have, except for the one side that meets the boundaries. So the fencing standards and the fencing setback standards, the building setback standards, all of that, just so that we could have this building here. Is that what I'm understanding?
Mr. Olson or Mr. Feather?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I understood the question. Could you repeat the question?
Well, besides that one side that meets the R2 district setbacks, everything else requires us to forget the rules that we have set in our building code and everything like that so that we can have this building here, correct?
I wouldn't say that's correct, no. What the applicant is requesting is the sort of the variation, I would call it. Let me just.
Well, Dan, before you go, can I address the bigger policy issue, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
So there are kind of higher level rules that the city has also adopted, such as the density range. 6 to 16 units per acre. This is at 7, so it's near the bottom of the density range. The only way to get a townhouse style product here is not to apply the standard R2 setbacks, which are not designed for sites that have this particular combination of characteristics. I would argue that the only way to achieve the same number of units without varying from the setbacks is to build an 8-unit apartment building, which is much more space efficient and would probably be configured in a way that would meet all the setbacks. But in order to do something like townhomes, which are much less space efficient than an apartment building, the trade-off is to look at ways to adjust the setbacks so that you can get the same number of units on the site. So It partly is a question of policy in an area that is a matter of policy. The city has said we should have X number of units. What do you want those units to look like? Do you want them to be a townhouse style or apartment style?
Any response?
Well, I'm just wondering if the applicant has looked into acquiring 6308 34th Avenue. As I was speaking to some of the residents today, that building, while it is a business currently, it is hardly being used by the people who currently own it, I guess. So I don't know if they've looked into buying that property. Because that would be able to, you know, like set them back a little bit more and not be so cramped in the area that they currently have.
Do you know who she's referencing?
Yes, there's I think it's an insurance office that's directly,
It's right here.
Right above.
yes. Well, I'm not sure if this particular applicant asked that, but city staff has inquired of adjacent property owners if they were interested in creating a larger site. And the answer was, we didn't get a
Response, okay.
response, yeah,
Yeah.
indicating interest.
Commissioner Hagel?
Dan, that 5-foot-high fence that will run, that pretty much eliminates any emergency access vehicles accessing those units off of Douglas Drive.
Well, go ahead.
They'd almost have to go around to the back, and that would be their access point, would it not?
Well, the fire department has indicated that they've looked at this and they've said a few things, that they would conceivably park the fire truck along Douglas. They can also get between the two buildings. There's that 10-foot space between the two buildings. I'm not sure if the fence will have lock boxes that will be available to the fire department. That's something that the applicant could maybe address. But I think most importantly, each unit will be sprinklered. We'll have a fire sprinkler system.
Yeah, see, I'm not worried about fire. I'm worried about more ambulance or police access or any of that stuff. It looks like everything would have to be from the rear. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's because that 5-foot-high fence, is that going to have any openings in it to access those units or not?
I would defer that question to the applicant.
We had not planned to have any openings in it. It's not a full, basically the fence is just to discourage anybody from, as spoken earlier, to come up on the patios, just to give a little bit of separation from the sidewalk to the patios.
So that would be like a wrought iron fence,
Correct.
5 foot high,
That's correct.
with no openings other than between the units, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
You good?
And also,
Mr. Sutter?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I think Mr. Brown just explained this, just to be clear, the fence is, it's just a lineal feature here, and then a lineal feature here with a little bit of a return to the west. In other words, it's open here, 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 and then here. So if someone like a police officer responding on foot will be able to get between the fence and the units here, 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 and here. And of course, they'll have full access to the functional entrances on the west, including where the driveway is. So their response, of course, is going to depend on the nature of the incident that they're responding to. But in a case where somebody on foot, a first responder, needs to get into the patio areas, I think is your concern primarily, they will have access points here, here, and then here as well.
Any further questions?
Yep.
Commissioner Sears?
This is with the architecture of the building, slab on grade. Is there a frost footing with the slab, or is it just a thickened slab on the perimeter? That's question number one. I got
Sure,
other-
there'll be a frost footing below the garage and the building or the unit itself.
Okay.
So everything will have frost footings. The sidewalks will be a floating slab, but the rest of it will be frost footings.
Okay. And then number two, there used to be a gas station there. And where's the status of that on the soil reclamation?
Sure. There has been a phase one and two environmental investigation completed in 2021 and 22.
Okay.
So that's been completed. The MPCA has approved what's called a response action plan, which is a plan that details how the soil contamination, which primarily exists on the south lot.
Okay.
I don't think there's any contamination on the north lot. It's all on the south lot. So this response action plan will be carried out by the applicant when they construct the building. They'll remove the contaminated soils according to the requirements of the MPCA.
Okay.
The city has received a grant from Hampton County for that work as well.
Okay. Well, anyways, that's my concern, because I don't know how well it's compacted, when they did the initial land reclamation. So, and I know, I read your general conditions, building conditions, and they talk about roll testing for the parking lot, but where the building goes, I'm just giving you a heads up, good compaction tests or review with your soils engineer on that. That's all. I'm aware of what was there. Okay?
Okay.
And those tanks were buried
I do.
deep. So the backfilling in that area is very deep. Okay? I know it's been dormant for 13 years or whatever, but just the same, there could be some problems. That's it.
Commissioner Hagel?
Dan, is there any record of those tanks being removed when they tore that station down?
Oh, yeah.
It's been a while since I've read the phase one and two, but I believe the tanks were removed when the building, or approximately when the building was demolished. The building was demolished in 2009, I believe.
Right.
And I think the tanks might have been removed around 2011, around that time frame.
But they were removed.
I believe that they were removed, yes.
Yeah, I did that kind of work. Been there, done that, felt that.
But there hasn't been any investigations since that time, soil investigation, and so these recent phase one and phase two did find soil contamination in the south lot there, which will be removed during construction of the buildings.
Commissioner Marisani?
Okay, I think this is my last question.
What?
So now that we get into severe weather season, and I know that this isn't going to have a basement, is the garage or some location within each of the 8 apartments going to have some sort of, I don't know, just be kind of a heavier or safer room so that if high winds or a tornado comes, there is a safe place for these people to go without having to be outside or be in their house as they're being taken away? I mean, I know tornadoes can take away even the safest of rooms, but I just want to know if there's going to be some sort of extra safety measure that the people, if the sirens go off, they just don't run to their garages, or I'm just trying to think of how it goes.
So we're not planning to build a storm shelter in each unit,
Okay.
but there's an area as you come in from the garage. It's a rear foyer area. It has a stairway adjacent to it and another bathroom. So there is an area in there. It's only about 6 to 8 feet wide. Typically the stairway is the strongest part of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got double walls, so there'd be no glass flying. You'd have the garage front wall and the house to garage wall. You'd have the stairway, 2 walls of the stairway, and then the back wall of the unit. So you do have quite a bit of
Okay.
shelter from the outside.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Commissioner, oh, so close I couldn't see you. Commissioner Schultz.
So I just am looking at the setbacks with the east and the west, and it just seems like there's a lot of space on the west setback compared to the east. Has there ever been a thought to moving that so that allows for more setback on the east side to mitigate the concerns regarding visibility, trees, thievery, vandalism? I don't know, just a question.
I would defer that,
So we
to-
have,
I would defer that question to the applicant.
Mr. Brown.
yeah, sorry about that. So we have looked at that very closely. To get traffic movements, to get cars in there, to get in and out of garages, we've pushed it as far to the west as we can and still be able to get car movements to function properly in there.
Well, thanks for taking a critical look. Good to hear.
And we have worked with the city with this plan for quite a while, and that was a suggestion the city made. So between us, we have looked very closely at it.
Mr. Chair. Again, the complication, thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, the complication here is the county's rules about curb cuts and access and all that. They clearly don't want access coming directly off their county road. And so that is part of the issue too, is that we couldn't just kind of invert it, right? To have more space with Douglas, is that having the garages go to Douglas. Because of that issue, we kind of had to lay it out so that the driveways are on the west side. And then the amount of space then you need on the west side is controlled by what you need for the driveway and the parking and so forth.
Commissioner Schultz.
So I went to the open house and we talked about the units, and at that time I thought I was told that they would be sold and given a pricing range, so I was surprised to see that you haven't decided yet about ownership versus rental. Was there a change or?
Mr. Brown.
No, I'm sorry. We had a lot of conversations that night. So our intent at this point with interest rates where they are would be to sell the units. So maybe when we were having that conversation, I'd had it with other people that night that we'd either rent them or be selling them. So I apologize if you came in between and there was any confusion, but we've always been, if we can get the fair rents for them and the interest rates are low enough, we would probably hold them as rentals. If interest rates continue to be a little bit higher or not sure which direction they're going to go, then we would probably put them on the market for sale.
Any further questions?
I would have, unless there was other ones, I have a comment. Just in the conversation tonight, regarding the front fence height, it's been indicated to be 5 feet. The underlying R2 district would only allow a 4.5 foot front fence. So I would add to the description of the variations to the PD zoning, that the fence be allowed to exceed that height of 4.5 feet to go to 5 feet.
Director Sutter.
Or alternatively, Mr. Chair, the developer could choose to simply do a 4-foot fence, for example, instead of a 5-foot along that Douglas side,
4.5.
up to 4.5, yeah. Mr. Brown, do you have anything? on that?
Most of the time, our decorative fence comes at 5 foot or 6 foot. So that's why we had chosen, in conversation here tonight, that's why I was saying 5 foot. I would have to look in, I'm sure there's other options out there that we could keep it at 4.5 foot or less.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? If not, Commissioner Hagan.
With the addition of that fence, that shrinks that 5-foot space down by how much?
Well, it's not a measure, it's, the fence is not getting larger, it's just getting shorter. Or,
No, I mean,
The distance between the building and that road is, you've got the patio there now, and then you have the fence on the
Fence.
other side of the patio, so.
now you
Now
have a
it's
small
patio.
area for planting going down there between the.
Yeah.
That's what I was questioning. What do we got left now with the installation of the fence?
well, are you saying that the sort of the front yard, so to speak, will be very small? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're asking about?
Well, you said originally we got 5 foot
Yes.
between patio, you got a 5-foot space, and you got the sidewalk, right? Now we're gonna stick a fence down there.
Well, it's,
That, your planting area's gotta be so far back from the footings on the fence. It's kinda shrinking that 5-foot area down a lot.
the easement area is, well, I mean, could I use the distance from the building frontage, which is here, to the new right-of-way line, which is here, is 13 feet.
Okay,
So this patio, I believe, is 6 feet wide. And there's a fence along there, along the edge of the patio. And then there's an additional 5-foot drainage and utility easement there where the trees will be going. So they're going to be outside the fence.
And
Is
then the
that-
additional 7 feet.
And then you have an additional 7 feet here, which is the additional right-of-way that the county has requested. So this is the curb area. Well, this is the not curb area. This is the existing property line right here. The curb is probably actually out here.
right.
So yeah, that's kind of how the space is used, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Commissioner Marisani.
This is just a personal curiosity question. But what types of families are these homes going to be marketed to? Like the older families or younger families or any families or? Because I am just picturing the kids and everything playing on the patio and stuff like that.
Sure. So I've built in some lots in Crystal previously, in Columbia Heights, in New Hope. We do find a lot of young professionals. We do have some people with families. I would say the majority of the time, though, it's young professionals. We've done some villa building before, and that was the young professionals. The single family, we do get more families.
Okay.
So it's a mix of the two. It's 2 stories, so I would not expect people empty nesters. They might. I've sold 2 empty nesters in the past on 2-story slab on grades.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none from the council, I'll open it up to public comment. I don't know if I opened the public hearing earlier. I think I did.
You did not open the public hearing that I heard.
Okay, my intent was. But we'll open it now and take public comment. First up, I have person Ryan Hamilton. You can come up and speak, name and address.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity to come before you to comment on this great project. Mr. Larson, if you could switch to the aerial So my name is Ryan Hamilton. I reside at 3400 Edgewood Avenue North. So we're the house to the left of the insurance shop there, in the bottom left of both photos. And so we also own, so I reside there with my wife and 2 children, ages 4 and 6. We also own 3412 and 3418, so those are those 2 lots there. And I come here before you just to go on the record to express our interest, my family's interest in working with the developer to build a fence along that northwest boundary there. I can tell you right now, my kids are always playing in that parking lot with for the insurance shop, riding their bikes there. So I can only imagine the type of interaction that will take place if there's a bigger parking lot along that north boundary. You know, the old saying is good fences make good neighbors. We're potentially going to have, 8 families or 8 young professionals, 8 new neighbors, plus their guests. And that's probably the most concerning, is that what's going to be along our wooded lot, our backyard, is parking for guests. So cars coming in and out. You know, it only takes one incident for either me or one of those owners or the developer here to get into an expensive and unfortunate incident. Let's just get out ahead of that and put a fence there. And so we just like to work with the developer. I didn't get a chance to attend the open house, so I don't have Mr. Brown's number. So we just want to work amicably to get a fence there. Thanks.
There will be a fence on a portion of that parking lot. If you, there's a retaining wall along that west property line. It doesn't go all the way up, all the way to the north, but it's right there where John is pointing out that there will be a fence on the top of that portion of the retaining wall. So the rest of it north of that, there will not be a fence at this point.
And so that's wooded now, as you probably already know. And the kids are getting older. They're starting to play down in those woods. You know, we mentioned snow removal. You know, we don't want the plow who doesn't know what's going on pushing the snow over into our woods and creating a swamp, because that's a low-lying area. You know, there's already talk of a fence up front. Doesn't seem very hard. So, yeah, and we also want to just discourage any kind of somebody getting out of the car. And it's the same thing that we're talking about, or the commission was talking about on the east side, in terms of having some boundary to discourage, curious walking about. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next I have Georgina. Thumbrone.
Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Georgina Tomford. I live at 6525 34th Avenue North. That is the corner of Georgia and 34th. I drive down 34th, down to Douglas Drive every single day. And so does my family, which is my husband, and our 3 adult driving children. I have multiple issues with this projected development, the number one issue being the setbacks. That 13-foot setback on the east side along Douglas Drive, if you're going to put a fence, then 5 feet tall around the building, you have just decreased our sight line on that hill even further than it already is. That is people speed up and down that hill. It's hard enough sometimes to see. If I am traveling northbound on Douglas Drive, trying to take a left-hand turn and go up 34th, I have people passing cars in the turn lane where I'm sitting in a turn lane waiting to turn. You have pedestrians walking through there on 34th Avenue to get down to the park. That's at Hampshire and 32nd. There is a lot of foot traffic. There's a lot of driving traffic. And I'm really not in the mood to look at 25 feet of building, 13 feet off of Douglas Drive. I am not impressed with this plan at all. I'm also think that this plan does not adhere to the city's green space amount. There's supposed to be 25% of this land is supposed to be green space. I see a lot of building. I see a lot of parking lot. I do not see a lot of green space. One of the council members brought up snow removal. I live on a dead end at 34th and Georgia. All of the snow is pushed out to 34th and is piled up in our yards. My neighbor has a massive snow pile still in his yard. There is no place on this plan to pile snow. That is a massive parking lot, a lot of blacktop space, and you have no space to put snow. It is going to run at that townhome complex to the north. I believe someone already stated that. I also have another issue with these units being sold as the property of the developer can turn them into rentals. There are enough rentals out there. There are apartment rentals. There are townhome rentals. There are homes for rent. People want homes. My neighbor's house was on the market a month ago. You might know her. Her name is Nancy LaRoche. Her home went up for sale on a Thursday. It was a constant line of cars, of people, of young married professionals, young families coming in looking for a home, something they could invest in, a backyard their children could play in. This development, these townhomes are not that. This is not what people want. This is not what people need. They want a home, something they can have, that their children can grow up in, and that they can grow old in. I don't think this is the right plan for this space. I used to walk down the hill to fill my gas tank at the gas station. I understand this is vacant land, and that's not good for the city coffers. But I don't think that this is the direction the city should be going. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I have no further cards. Does anybody in the audience wish to speak?
I've nearly been hit twice, trying to turn left on 34th Avenue North.
Pardon?
I've nearly been hit
Ma'am,
twice.
if you're going to speak, you
Oh, sorry. So I have nearly been hit twice on trying to turn west on 34th Avenue North from heading northbound on Douglas Drive as people try to pass cars in the turn lane on Douglas Drive. I've seen it multiple times. I understand that the lanes were put in and the turn lane in the middle to help slow traffic down, but we all know people don't like to drive slow. So it's an interesting intersection with a short sight line. You can't see down the hill to where that other townhome building is, to where Sweet's Living went in, downhill to the light. People just come flying up southbound from that light, just up the hill at top speed until they get right up to 34th. And like you said, you want to put families in there with homes, with children outside 13 feet off of Douglas Drive? I don't see it. Do you have any other questions for me?
Any other questions for the speaker?
Thank you.
No, thanks. And we know 32nd is probably the worst intersection in the city of Crystal at this point in time. I have any other people that would like to speak? See no one approach.
I do see someone on the Zoom call. I don't know if they wish to speak or.
They aren't raising their hands for.
Okay.
I have no, you have so many Zoom people.
It's on the screen there, but I don't see that anyone's raising their hand. Let me stop screen sharing, and then I'll be able to do a,
Two of them are with the applicant, I know, so.
Anybody else like to speak on this issue?
If lighting should definitely be addressed in this because it is so close. I know that they're going to submit something later, I think, so I just want to mention that that is a thing. Because I don't think they have their lighting decided yet. Am I correct in that, Mr. Brown?
Mr. Brown, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So we were turning in a lighting plan. Dan had a few more questions on it, so we held it from the application. We did have a professional company do the lighting layout for us. And by the time we got it there, it was getting close to the end of the day. Dan said he would make it a condition of approval to make sure that we're following the city rules for the lighting.
So, Dan, is it going to be hard then with that diminished space to keep the lighting on the property? Or is that going to be relatively easy to do?
Well, they have submitted, they submitted sort of an incomplete exterior lighting plan, as Mr. Brown indicated. So there were parts that were complete. And the portion that was complete were was called the foot candle requirement, which shows what is the lighting strength at the property line. And it did meet that requirement. They just didn't have, I needed some more detail about the fixtures themselves that are on the walls and that sort of thing, how many there were, location of them, and as Mr. Brown said, there just wasn't any time to get that into me, and I didn't want to give it to you halfway completed, so I just made it a condition of approval.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant or the city planner? If not, I'll close the hearing. If there's no further discussion, I'm looking for a motion to either approve or reject. I guess I have one question. The requirements and stipulations, do you have a page that they're on?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Stipulations, staff report.
Yes, the
page?
conditions, yes.
What page is it on?
The conditions of approval are on page 8 and 9.
There's a lot of subjects brought up. We just want to look through this, see if there's any other questions we may have.
Requested action.
I would just note that the green space requirement is met. The maximum hard surface space or surface on the property is 75%. They are at 68%, so they have met that.
Any further questions?
I don't have any further.
Mr. Hagel? I'll be here next. Right.
There's been a couple questions brought up about the distance of the building from Douglas. I've said this before, but I think it's worth repeating, is that yes, the setback for the building is 13 feet, but it will be 20 feet from the existing property line, which is just an additional right-of-way there. And then the curb, if you can maybe show the curb. The curb is way out there. I'm not sure how many more feet that's even farther out. So the building, even though it will be 13 feet from the property line, it's going to be quite far from the curb, which is what people typically view as a quote-unquote property line. So there's going to be quite a bit of space there. It's not just 13 feet.
Mr. Chair? Let me put some numbers on that. So we said earlier it's 20 feet from the face of the building to where the sidewalk is, so to help you visualize it. And then about another 7 to 8 feet to the face of the curb. So say 27 feet to the curb of Douglas Drive and about 20 feet to the sidewalk along Douglas Drive.
Commissioner Schultz.
I make a motion to accept the requested actions, F, numbers 1 through 9, adding number 10 to allow for a 5-foot fence.
I will second it.
Motion is made and seconded concerning the fence. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Against? Nay?
Nay.
Motion passes.
Sorry, who made the second?
I did.
Commissioner Sears.
Dan, do you need a roll call?
Yes, I could take a roll call. Sears?
Aye.
Heigl?
Aye.
Selton?
Aye.
Maristani?
Nay.
Schultz?
Aye.
And Einfeld Brown.
Aye.
Motion passes. And this will go before the City Council on April 18th. I think it says March 21st in your staff report, so that was an error, which I apologize for. But it is April 18th is when it will go for City Council review of the first reading of the ordinance and also the preliminary plat approval.
So is this property in compliance with the comprehensive plan, or are we,
That item is later on in the agenda. There's a separate item for that later in the agenda.
okay?
Yep.
Why is it later?
Well, I just thought it'd be good to keep those two separate because they're different motions, like there's a resolution involved in that determination. So I just thought it'd be better to keep it separate from your action about the plat and the rezoning.
It caught me off guard because I didn't look at the addresses completely, and Mr. Hagel just pointed that out to me. That,
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I understood your,
well, he just pointed out that we're taking the issue of conformance to the comprehensive plan later, when I think we should be ahead of that. Director Sutter.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, that's a fair point. However, under the order of the agenda, public hearings have to come first before non-public hearing items, and that item regarding comp plan conformance is not a public hearing, and that is the reason it has to be later on the agenda. We kind of have to go out of order because of that. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing, and that's why we have to take that.
Makes it look like if we didn't approve the application, then the new business goes away.
Well, you could have more than one reason for doing something, sir, and that is a very good reason also to have it later. But no, it is because of the public hearings have to be first on the agenda before any other business.
the action that you take on the comprehensive plan in relation to the property sale, that's a decision or determination that only the planning commission makes, not the council. So that's another reason for separating the two. Obviously, they're very interconnected, but there's different actions required for each issue.
Okay. So we're finished with that application, and we'll move on to the next one then. Okay, I'll open a public hearing for the UDC text amendment request to amend requirements for electric fences, application number 2023-04. Commissioner Planner Olson, you have the floor.
Yes, okay, thank you. This, as was said, this is a public hearing for a text amendment to the Unified Development Code relating to electric fences. The city has received a text amendment request from Amarok LLC, which is a manufacturer of electric fences based in South Carolina. They're asking to have electric fences be allowed in Crystal. Currently, they are prohibited. These are the districts that they would like the fences to be allowed in the commercial, industrial, airport, and then also in some uses for non-residential uses within the residential districts. These are notable elements of Amarok's proposed fence ordinance. First is that the minimum height for the electric fence is 10 feet, so that's a minimum. There's also, the ordinance was written by Amarok. I had no role, I should say, in actually writing that ordinance that they submitted. So the second element is that they are requiring what's called a perimeter fence, which is would be located in front of the electric fence, and it would be at least 5 feet high. 5 feet in height. Thirdly, they make several references to an electrical code. I have spoken with our city electrical inspector as well as someone from the state electrical inspections, and they are not familiar with this code that's being referenced, and what I've been told is that it's not a code that has been adopted by the state of Minnesota. So we're not really sure how it applies to this particular fence that Amarok is proposing. Staff is recommending denial of the electric fence ordinance with the following findings. First, that electric fences would be allowed if this were adopted, would be allowed in large areas of Crystal. It'd be allowed, as I said, it'd be allowed on hundreds of properties in the commercial, industrial, and airport districts. There to my right, your left, is an example from Cub, where the fence would be located along, what I did was I looked at the impact on single-family residential. So along that, where that arrow is where the Cub commercial property meets the single-family residential. So that's where they could put in an electric fence along that property line. As I said earlier, too, the text would allow fences, these electric fences in residential districts for at least some uses. Secondly, the second rationale or findings is that the electrical code requirements that they have cited in their ordinance have not been adopted by the state of Minnesota. Thirdly, commercial area aesthetics. Crystal residents have routinely been surveyed on what they think of Crystal, and the response has been consistently demonstrated as a desire for more appealing commercial areas. Electric fences are inconsistent with that goal. Next, the property owners, these commercial property owners always have the option of protecting their assets by storing them in a building rather than outdoors with an electric fence. Next, once installed, it would be virtually impossible to remove electric fences, even if the ordinance is changed later, because they would be considered lawfully non-conforming or grandfathered in. Some people use that term. So it'd be really difficult to have them be removed once they're here. Next, I did a poll of other cities and if they require or they allow, I should say, electric fences. You can see on this table that Golden Valley, New Hope, Robbinsdale, St. Louis Park, Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park, all these cities that are adjacent to us, around us, they do not allow electric fences. Other cities that are similar to us, like Roseville and Richfield, do not either. The only two that I could find in sort of the immediate area were Plymouth, where electric fence is allowed on an interim basis, meaning it's allowed for a set period of time, so it's not a permanent thing. And then Maple Grove does allow them in 2 instances for farmsteads. They still have a lot of farmland out there, which we do not have. And then also they allow some property owners to receive approval of a conditional use permit if the council feels it's appropriate for that situation. The staff recommendation is we recommend denial of the proposed UDC text amendment relating to electric fences. What you are being asked to do tonight is to hold a public hearing to receive comments, and then consider recommending denial of the UDC amendment relating to electric fences. The next steps would be going for first reading of the ordinance on April 18th by the City Council. If the City Council denies it at that point, then the ordinance does not proceed any further. If the Council approves first reading, then it would go to a second reading on May 2nd. And if that passes, then it goes for publication in the Sun Post newspaper on May 11th, and then it would go into effect on June 10th. So I'm available for questions if you have any. I believe there's a representative from Amarok on the Zoom call as well.
Any questions? Mayor,
Commissioner Mayorstein.
Commissioner Mayorstein.
Okay, did you go to our police department and ask if this would be helping them in any way, or if they found that this would be necessary within our city?
I did, with all applications that come in, land use applications like this, I sent them to several people, including the police. I did not hear a response, either negative or positive, on electric fences.
I have more questions, please.
Oh, Commissioner Schultz.
Is this, is the purpose of bringing this to our city just to be available, or has there been businesses that have asked for this that we're aware of? Is there, I guess I'm just looking, are you looking at, looking to move into a new market? Is it, are you Michael? Michael,
Yes, I am.
okay, thank you.
She'll repeat her question she had for you.
Oh, I did, I think he answered it. He's looking for a new market. I don't know that.
Oh, okay.
Is anybody directly solicited you from our community to put an electric fence in for them?
Yes, they have. We don't go off on a whim here trying to change code all over the country. We basically have a customer who asked us to install our product, which is basically a criminal defense product at their site. And when we check the code here in the city, we were told that the city of Crystal does not allow electric battery-powered fences. So that's why we are here trying to amend the code.
Thank you.
Commissioner Marisani.
So then this question is probably more for Dan. Is there a reason that electric fences are not allowed in our city?
Well, probably for all the reasons that I alluded to earlier. Aesthetics is probably a big one. There's other options for property owners to secure their products, their goods, than having an electric fence. That seems like something that would be allowed. I mean, you could see in Maple Grove, they allowed it for farmsteads. I think that's an appropriate use for an electric fence, but in a fully built-out urbanized city, I don't believe that that's an appropriate thing to have in your city.
Oh, yeah.
And I think other cities bear that out. You can see, as you saw, other cities do not allow it either.
Yeah, Dan,
Commissioner Hagel.
there has to be a major liability on this fence. Either the property owner or do we get involved in allowing something like this? If somebody tried to climb over it, got zapped, knocked to the ground, maybe broke his neck, who covers the liability on something like that?
I would defer that to the applicant to answer.
I'll direct it to you. Michael?
Yes, is this part of my presentation, or am I just answering questions now?
Oh, you have a presentation?
Pardon me?
Do you have a presentation to give us?
Well, I'm basically the applicant, so I'd like to explain exactly what we're trying to do here and answer everything from the city staff. Yes, ma'am.
Why don't you make your, this is Joe Sullivan, the chair. Why don't you make your presentation and then we'll figure out if we have any answers or questions for you.
Excellent. Thank you
You
very
got
much.
the floor.
Well, let's start about the way it works. So basically, these are security devices. We are set up inside the existing fence line of the business. So we're separated about 100 to 200 millimeters, that's about 4 to 8 inches, from the exterior fence line that's already there. I have nothing to do with the exterior fence line, that's all under the purview of the city of Crystal. So we basically operate these devices on 12-volt batteries. We are never connected to the electrical infrastructure at all. We keep the 12-volt batteries powered by solar panels. So when the power goes out, we're still up and running and protecting that particular piece of property. We have an energizer. The energizer takes that 12 volts, amplifies it to 7,000 volts in 1.1 seconds. Once that energizer is loaded, it must release that energy down the interior lines back to an alarm panel, and in 3 10,000ths of a second, we do quick perimeter checks. So pulse, 1.1 second, pulse, 1.1 second, pulse. We keep going into infinity. We're looking for a nice clean return to the alarm panel. somewhere around 2,000 volts plus. If it goes negative, the alarm panel starts a countdown. Countdown is 5 consecutive negative pulses. If that happens, we set the alarm off on the property. And silently, back to our call center in Columbia, South Carolina, we go through a call list. So whoever's number 1 on my call list, I miss them, I go to number 2. I get them, I say, look guys, we have a break-in on the northern perimeter. What would you like to do? We have cameras associated with these devices. They can sit at home on their Wi-Fi, bring up that particular fence line, look at it and go, hey, we had a big snowstorm, knocked over the sycamore tree on the corner. Everything's down. Please do not call the police. And we will not. We'll button it up and go back to bed. Or, in the next scenario, we've got 5 guys in a flatbed truck, cut a hole in their fence, and robbing them blind. Please call the local police department. That's called a verified alarm. The police love verified alarms. They know where to go and what to expect. We do this all over the country. We have hundreds of these in Minnesota, literally thousands, almost pushing 7,000 across the country, in all major urban areas of the country, because that's where most of the crime is, in urban areas. Let me answer a few questions real quick. One was they're talking about codes. We're not trying to establish any electrical code. What we're doing is establishing a standard. So your computers, I see you all have a computer up there. All those computers have been tested to an internationally recognized standard, and it's stamped, tested and labeled, and there's a stamp on your computer that makes sure that that computer is constructed in such a way that it won't shock you or it won't catch on fire, and that it's safe and reliable. And that's what we do. That's what the standards we operate under do. These standards are codified in, right now, 22 states and over 700 cities in America have adopted these standards. We actually are looking at zones to put these in. Typically, where we install these types of devices are industrial and commercial areas, not residential. We're never, ever in a residential area. And the reason being is that the standard does not allow us to operate in residential areas, so that's where we don't put them. What we're looking at is businesses that have large outdoor storage capacity and don't have the ability to build a building, which would encompass the entire site, to store their product. Think of equipment rental businesses like United Rentals. These are the types of businesses that have outdoor storage that use our product. All the large manufacturing and distribution trucking companies in America use our product. UPS, FedEx, and the list goes on and on. Caterpillar, John Deere, anybody like that in this large outdoor lot that requires security. I'm going to aesthetics real quick here. These devices are literally very difficult to see, if not impossible. If you don't know they're there, and you're driving down the road at a reasonable speed of 25 to 30 miles an hour, you will not see them. You will be able to see where they are if you're walking, because under the standard, we must put signs up that say caution, electric fence, 7,000 volts, international sign for shock, English and Spanish minimum, please don't touch. So that's the way we actually mark the sites. Once these devices are up, yes, they can be removed. I'm not going to leave several $1,000s worth of electrical utility up to be exposed that someone can take with an unprotected site. So if the business closes down, the customer moves, we basically take all the electronic components out, the alarm panels, the batteries, the energizers, the solar panels, take it all out. It's gone. So we actually do remove these because we own them. Our business model, which is not the same as my competitors, is I'm providing a service. The service is very similar to an alarm service. So my customers pay me a monthly fee to ensure that their property is protected. The police never have to go out there again. We are like 98 to 99% effective in preventing crime on these sites. So a problem site that keeps getting broken into, we basically stop everything they're told. A question came up almost immediately about liability. We carry liability insurance on every site. We have an umbrella policy as well as liability on every site in excess of $1 million. People do not get injured with these devices. That's why we test and label these devices to the IEC and the ANSI standard, which is the American National Standards Institute. So it is an American standard. The staff also mentioned other options. Look, if someone comes to me, they have exhausted all their options. They are getting broken into continually, and they don't want to get broken into anymore. They want to keep their business in the city of Crystal. They want to serve the city of Crystal, and the way they do that is keep people from breaking into their property and robbing them blind. And that's what we do. So that's kind of like the thumbnail sketch of Amarok Systems. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Commissioner Marisani has a question.
How does the fencing affect the natural wildlife of the area? We have a bunch of cats, and dogs, and squirrels, and possums, and things that run around.
Yes, and I think when I saw the grid up there about all the cities that don't allow, and the ones that do allow, they basically allow in agricultural areas, and this is basically an adaptation of that kind of device. So it does not harm those particular animals. It won't hurt a bird. It won't hurt a turtle. I operate in California where I have to be sure that I'm not going to interfere with tortoise right-of-ways. So they're not going to harm an animal at all. You see birds on power lines all the time. They're sitting up there, and unless they're grounded, they're okay. Same thing with these devices. And by the way, the city staff has all the testing documents that verify everything that I've told you.
I'm just confused then how this deters crime if it's just not hurting the animals and it's not going to hurt a person either. So then the person throws their coat over the top and then climbs over, or uses wire cutters and zap, and then they're through. I'm very confused.
Well, if someone cuts through the device, it's going to set the alarm off, number one. Number two, if they touch it and ground it out, it's going to deliver a shock. Mm-hmm. The shock is very similar to what you feel in your home when you scrub your stocking feet across the carpet or reach out and hit a door handle. That's a 15 to 20,000 volt static shock. It's uncomfortable. You don't want to do it again. And that's basically what we do. It's an uncomfortable feeling. Your body abhors electrical shock, and people will not go back at it. If they do, and they tear it down, they break the pulse, we're going to set the alarm off.
Commissioner
Do
Hagel.
you understand that now?
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hagel.
Your device is very much like the impulse devices that farmers use to control their cattle from breaking through fences. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Those devices can be set up, because my uncle has this device working on his farm. It will knock a 1,000-pound steer down. You can set it for whatever you want. It can shock it or it can knock it down. I've seen it happen. Now,
Yes, sir. And agricultural devices are much stronger than what we have.
Okay,
Agricultural
but it
devices
operates.
run somewhere.
But it operates on the same
sorry.
principle, right? Now, is it part of
Does
the?
what now?
Is it? It operates on the same principle.
It does operate on the same principle, but it's only allowed to hold 5 joules of energy, where a cattle fence or a livestock fence can hold 25 to 40 joules of energy, so it's
Right.
much more powerful. That's why you incorporate the standard into the amendment, so it's built for humans and will not knock them down.
Now, is it really integrated in the fence, or is this away from the fence?
It's a separate device. So there's a perimeter fence up, whether it's a wall, it's wrought iron, it's chain link. We actually installed the device behind the existing perimeter barrier.
So, okay, so this is a separate wire that runs above ground.
Correct.
How high above ground is that wire?
Well, the standard says 10 feet. So if there's an 8-foot perimeter barrier, we're going to have 2 or 3 strands above it. So our device has strands 4 inches apart. The wires are thinner, but of similar color and construction as chain link. So they virtually disappear behind chain link. They're 4 inches apart until about 4 feet off the ground. Then we start separating at 8 inches. So if there's a 8-foot perimeter fence, we have 3 strands above it, virtually invisible.
Commissioner Marisani.
So this is running off of solar panels. Have you had any case where there wasn't enough power being generated that the electric fence wasn't going to have a current anymore?
Absolutely, and that happens in many of the northern climes. Let's say Seattle, Washington is a great example. We actually have trickle chargers to keep the battery charged in case that happens. If you have a long snow event that lasted several days, which is probably pretty typical in your climb, yes, we would have a trickle charger on there. You'd also have to keep the snow off of the panels themselves once the event was over. So there is maintenance required to keep it up and running like that. But my answer to your question is yes, you do need to have an auxiliary component that keeps the battery charged in that case.
Yeah.
Commissioner Sears.
Yep. I'm familiar with electric fences. I was on a farm. So we had 1 through 10 rheostat, you know, and we used to tease one another to see how high we could go up on the rheostat of the electric fence, okay? You know, days of my youth. But anyways, people don't get fried. Their eyes don't pop out. They touch the juice and they jump back. It's simple as that. I know how it goes. You just touch it a little bit because you ground it, and when you ground it, you make that signal happen. Because the juice is going through you, through your feet in the ground, and the alarm goes off. Now, when I was reading here, you know, and it says aesthetics, a lot of the people don't even know what we're talking about, and they voice an opinion, okay? I'm just saying, I'm pretty sure that the John Doe public is not aware of what electric fence is or how it can look like, okay? I'm just throwing that out. The next thing I'm gonna throw out is the storage of it says we got storage in the building. Well, we've got land use where you can only have X amount of hardened surface outbuildings per given area. I mean, we start getting into a word bind on logic, you know, because if the business owner tries to put up a shed for his items, then he has to come through us, and then he might not get it because it's the land use of hardened surface, another building with stormwater runoff. So there's a lot of things here that I kind of just brought up, but I'm just telling you, I'm familiar with electric fences, and they're a great deterrent on letting or preventing people traveling through the neighborhoods, like the one at Cub Foods. Those homes at front, or their backyard fronts, if there was electric fence through there, they wouldn't get as much people traffic, you know, from Cub Foods going through the neighborhood, okay? It's a great deterrent. I'm just throwing that out, you know. If you're a homeowner, you would probably like to have safety on your back property line. Just food for thought. There, I'm done. But anyways, it's a hoot to run those electric fences.
Commissioner Marisani.
How big are the solar panels? Because obviously the fence isn't going to be as visible, but the solar panel isn't exactly as thin as a fence is.
It can be
Yes,
put
ma'am,
somewhere remote.
it is a solar array. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. It's, you have to have the solar array set up so it's in an exposed area. It has to be angled toward the sun. However, that is situated on the property. So you basically have to look at the way the sun's going to travel over that particular piece of property to orient the panels toward that travel of the sun. It has to be done that way for them to operate. You are correct on that.
I got one quick question.
Commissioner Hagel.
You put this up around, say, a perimeter business. How often do you have a sign on that fence?
It's 30 feet.
That there's,
The standard says every 10 meters, which basically equates to about 30 to 31 feet. We usually run about every 30 feet because panels on fences are usually 10 feet. When I say fences, I mean the perimeter. So we have a few more on the gate, just because the panels on the gates are a little closer together than that, and we have multiple signs on the gates, but about every 10 meters or 30 feet is where the signs would be.
thank you.
Commissioner Marisani.
This might be more for Dan. Is this really, can't this be considered more as a security system than a fence? Because it's not really being used to block light or, like visual things. It's being used to actually deter physical contact over a specific area. So wouldn't it be considered more of a security system than a fence if this were to be installed?
No, I would consider it a fence. In fact, their own, Amarok's own brochure that you have in your packet also calls it a fence.
Okay.
A fence is a barrier to stop somebody from getting, either impeding or getting them to get from one area to another. It's to enclose an area. So I think it really meets all the definitions of a fence.
Okay.
Any other questions? Director Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I did want to address some of the comments that the applicant made. I want to remind everyone that regardless of their stated intent, the ordinance they submitted would allow these in all commercial, industrial, and airport districts, and again, this is in their own ordinance text they submitted, in residential districts that aren't exclusively residential. Well, none of our residential districts are exclusively residential because we allow institutional uses, such as schools, churches, and so forth. Basically, they are asking for you to allow 10-foot-high electric fences anywhere in the city of Crystal, regardless of their stated intent or their assurances tonight as to how they would use this or what their customers are. The ordinance they submitted is far more expansive than that. The second thing is, in response, I think, to Mr. Olson's point about lawful nonconforming uses, the applicant says, well, we don't leave these, we remove them. We aren't talking about a business closing. We're talking about a scenario where one of these goes up, the people in the community get very upset by that. The city council, as they should, responds to that by repealing the allowance for these. But the one that went in, or any of them that go in, once they're in, they're there forever unless the property owner decides to take it down. We cannot, because of lawful non-conforming use rights, we cannot just say, oh, we changed our mind, we think these need to go. No, once they're in, they're in. I found it interesting that the applicant said that there is a specific business in Crystal that wants this, yet city staff have never heard from them. The applicant doesn't name the location of this business, so we have no way of knowing if that's in fact. And finally, when we adopted the Unified Development Code several years ago, we had a pretty significant discussion about fences and aesthetic requirements because we used to allow like wire fences and things like that. And we, as a community, this planning commission and the city council decided that no, Crystal should have higher standards, because that's what the city council mainly and city staff were hearing from the people of this community. They want Crystal to look nicer. And I would say that this ordinance amendment is contrary to that overarching goal. I guess one final thing too, as far as indoor storage as an option, if you recall Midwest Water Sports on Broadway, just south of the railroad crossing, they used to have an outdoor storage yard that might have been an example of where this type of thing might be desired by the property owner. Well, what they did is they turned that outdoor storage yard into a 50-foot tall indoor bolt storage building. That is the kind of investment, I think, as a matter of policy, the city wants to encourage. So, again, this ordinance amendment seems contrary to the goals of the city as kind of given to us by our city council that came from the people of Crystal.
Any further questions, comments? I have to see if anybody in the public area wants to.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Pate has raised his hand.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I want to address exclusively residential if I could. Usually, first of all, not all zoning classifications are uniform across the country. So this is more of a template type of ask here. I believe in my comments I said industrial and commercial. We do not want it in residential, and the standard does not allow in any residential area. So we're not going to be putting these in schools. We're not going to be putting these around homes. We're just not doing it. It's not allowed there. So to make a change like that is very easy to do, and basically take out, exclusively residential and just incorporate commercial and industrial. That being said, the town has complete control over where these devices go, and that's with the perimeter barrier. If it's not a minimum of 5 feet tall, this device cannot be installed. That's what's overlooked all the time in these discussions is the town, the city of Crystal, has complete control over where these devices are installed with the height of the perimeter barrier. Those are the two I'd like to address. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I would just respectfully disagree with that determination. The city can only enforce what is written. I can only enforce what's written. So if it's really ambiguous, like this is, someone could easily challenge me on that. If it says electric fences shall be permitted on any property not zoned exclusively for residential use. I have to enforce that. So if somebody comes and wants to do
I just
something.
said we could eliminate that phrase. I said this was a generic application and that phrase can be eliminated. Very easy.
Sure. But there's other ambiguities about the ordinance as well. I mean, there's several references to this IEC standard, which
there's nothing ambiguous about the standard. It's written, it's tested by the American National Standards Institute. There's nothing ambiguous about a standard.
Well, I spoke to the chief. His title is Chief Electrical Inspector for the state of Minnesota. He's never heard of that.
Well, look it up.
I did.
Be glad to send you a copy. And I think we did send you a copy.
No, I didn't receive that. I received only the brochure and the ordinance language.
I'll make sure you get the IEC standard.
Any further comment? Commissioner Marisoni.
I am going to make a motion to deny application number 2023-4. And I'm also going to.
I'd like to,
What
first of all, point out I need to ask for any more public input.
Sorry. I have a comment that I could give him then instead, but if you allow me. Our city, how we tend to operate and do things to the code is to create commissions and councils and things like that here. If you would like to have electrical fences within our city, I think it's better to speak with our mayor and council and ask them to form a commission to look into this, to decide how our city would like to word having something as you suggest in our industrial and our commercial areas. And instead of coming to us with a cookie cutter thing that isn't specific to our area. I think that our city would be much more comfortable doing something like that rather than accepting what you currently have before us. So if you'd like to continue on, Commissioner Self.
Have you any comment, sir? Mr. Pete? You're on mute.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry.
Oops.
Sorry, okay.
You're muted.
You're muted, you're muted, you're muted.
I'm trying to unmute him and okay, there we go. Sorry, Michael.
How's that?
Okay, we can
No,
hear
this is
you.
my fault. Everything has to start at planning commission. That's the way it is. And it can be worked out from the planning commission and go to the city council. But we can work from the top down if you'd like us to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Sutter.
So, Mr. Chair, if that is the motion that Commissioner Maristani is going to propose or something along those lines, the applicant is right. The Planning Commission there's already a commission to discuss things like this, and it's you. So if you're interested in entertaining a modified version of this ordinance, you are the body that typically would have those discussions. And you can initiate those discussions based on what's been submitted as a starting point. Unfortunately, action still needs to be taken on the application that was submitted. And then if you as a commission, after further deliberation, after the application, this application is acted on by the council, want to talk about a more limited version of this ordinance that would be amenable to a majority of you, then you can certainly do that. And the city could then, based on your request, initiate a text amendment for council consideration at that time. But we can't mix up what was submitted and what you're asked to make a recommendation on with what other goals or desires you may have to try to find something that you feel is more workable. I know it's a lot of word salad, I'm sorry. But I think our city attorney would say something very similar about the need to act on this ordinance clearly, but that doesn't mean you can't say, well, we want to think about this a little more.
Commissioner Hagel.
You know, with 10 cities here saying no, surrounding us, I don't think we need electric fences in Crystal. And from what I'm hearing in the installation of these, I don't see a place in Crystal where this would really work. I mean, I'm not familiar with the police reports. Teresa, maybe more. Have you heard of any place that has so many multiple break-ins? This system would be required?
No, I have not.
And Dan, you haven't, and John?
I have not had anyone request electric fences in the past.
Okay. And I go back, we got 10 cities here that have said no to electric fences. I don't believe we should be the #1 city to say, go ahead on it.
questions, comments further? I see nobody else from here. What?
I just want to piggyback on both of your comments here. So
You're
there is,
close I couldn't see you again.
that's okay. So there is a city that does allow the property owner to receive approval for an interim use permit. So I would be open to an individual business coming to solicit on an individual basis, but I would reject a blanket ordinance such as this.
Any other comments?
What I would add to that is we don't have an interim use permit
Yeah.
here in Crystal. So we'd have to create if you wanted to do it that way, not this application.
Oh, well, right, I'm just saying in the
Yeah.
future, if somebody did come to us and say, we really need an electric fence, and this is why, and this is what we're looking at, I would consider it on an individual basis, but I agree that this is not appropriate for us, I mean, for our community at this time, the way it's submitted.
I see nobody from the public approaching the podium. I'm going to close the public hearing. And we're at the point where I'm looking for a motion to either deny or accept the application.
I'll make a motion to deny it.
I'll second.
Commissioner Hagel makes a motion,
To deny the application.
and Commissioner Marisani seconded.
Yep.
Any further discussion?
Yeah,
Commissioner Sears?
just maybe conditional review by parties. You know, I know you said you can't, but there wouldn't be a big need for electrical fence, but maybe someplace in Crystal there would be. Okay? And so I can see where somebody might come up and says, I gotta have it.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, there.
But we're not, can we also, on that motion, recommend that the council determine a task force to look into electrical fencing code within our city? Or determining places where it would be acceptable?
You can amend the motion. It's agreeable with the,
How would you state that again?
you need
That we-
direction.
So, a motion to deny application 2023-4, but with an amendment to go to the council to determine if a task force could be created to find, or to create either code or locations where electrical fences could follow a conditional use permit or some other temporary status thing. I'm sorry, I don't have the words.
Director Sutter.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I think task force is a very specific thing in our city governmental structure. I don't think that's really what, it sounds like it's more like a working group.
Okay.
Excuse me. I respectfully suggest that the motion would be that the request that the city manager designate
Commission?
a group, because, for example, perhaps the police chief needs to be part of this group, right? The city manager really needs to decide who needs to be in this bucket of people that are going to come up with something that would present to you all if the city decides to initiate its own amendment on this issue.
Okay.
So perhaps your motion could ask that the city manager designate a staff working group to evaluate and possibly propose something for the planning commission
Right.
to consider, because that's what you all would need to think about once we have something for you to look at.
Kind of an algorithm, if somebody does come to the city and wants to have an electric fence, these are the things that need to be looked at in that decision-making of that business. Again, I think it should be a case-by-case basis. I don't think we should do any blanket umbrella on anything. It should be a case-by-case, just like with the townhomes and anything else that's wants an amendment to the code. I think it's a slippery slope otherwise.
I think to me, a task force or working group, however you phrase it, to me, that means that if you're recommending that to me, that you're saying that it's proven that there is a need for this. We don't, in my opinion, that has not been proven.
Okay.
Commissioner Hagel.
I'll stay with my original proposal, deny the application on the basis that we don't feel that it is needed in Crystal.
You can reference the findings in the staff report if you like.
Reference findings.
And you still seconded it, Commissioner Mercer?
Yeah, I'll still second it.
Okay, we got a motion before us. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Against, say nay. Anybody that's abstaining?
No, I forgot to say aye, I'm sorry.
Motion passes.
Okay. Yes, as I said earlier, this will be on the council's agenda for the April 18th meeting for the first reading of the ordinance.
Next item is new business, conformance to comprehensive plan, sale of 3401 to 3415 Douglas Drive North. Planner Olson, you have the floor.
Right. I do have a presentation if you'd like, but we've already covered this too, so I don't know if you want me to. It's up to you.
Mr. Chair, I just put it up because there is a comprehensive plan map, if you wanted to see that, to see where these properties are.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, we saw it.
There.
They're the two white dots.
Yep.
It's more powerful when you have maps and charts.
So that's medium density residential.
Yep.
It's also within, it's kind of cut off there, but it's within area D as in dog, in the comprehensive plan, which is a redevelopment area in the city. So you're being asked to make a determination that the sale of the lots is in conformance with the comprehensive plan.
Yep, it is. 100%.
Council members have any questions?
They're blank lots that could use buildings on them. That's within the comprehensive plan. Yes, I didn't agree with the building that they're putting on that, but that's something separate from them being lots that could be sold.
Right.
Commissioner Brown?
I make a motion to approve the sale of 3104 to 3115 Douglas Drive to say that it complies with our comprehensive plan.
Motion is made by Mr. Brown. Any second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Sears seconds it. Any further discussion on the motion? None, I see none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Any abstains? Motion passes. General information, council actions, update by liaison, staff review.
I don't have to look at that. I'm pretty excited about the development on 34th and Douglas, because that has been an empty lot for a very long time. Other than that, blue line, that's what we're talking about lots of, and how our station is going to look. So that's what I have to add. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Any likely agendas for May 8th?
Yes, if you're able to go back to 6A, where the, just the previous council action, the site plan for the proposed office warehouse on Hanson was approved by the city council with the conditions that you had recommended. As far as likely items for May 8th, the deadline is not until tomorrow, but I have not received any applications yet. However, along with the blue line, the consultant that is updating the station area plan for the new location of the light rail station at Highway 81 and Bass Lake Road, they would like to make a presentation to you and just get your input as they're near the beginning of their process of updating that plan. So at the May 8th meeting, they will meet with you at a regular meeting to do that. So that will be one item. At least you'll have that one item. On May 11th, the City Council will hear a very similar presentation from the consultant. You are welcome to attend that as well if you want to hear the council's discussion. But those are the two meetings, May 8th, Planning Commission, and then May 11th is a council work session that they will be hearing from the consultant as well. So,
Mr. Chair, if I may add.
Director Sutton.
And then later in May or early June, the date hasn't been set yet, based on the feedback that the stationary planning consultant gets from you on the 8th of May and the City Council on the 11th of May, they will present materials to the community at sort of a community workshop. Again, late May, early June, sometime around there. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Schultz.
I have a question for our liaison. I understand the council's in the process of interviewing for a replacement for Ms. LaRoche. Do you know when that will be wrapped up?
Hopefully on Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
We've conducted the interviews, and we have a work session on Thursday to hopefully pick a final candidate. There were 11 candidates, so.
Thank you for your work.
Sure.
Next on the item is open forum. Anything else for open forum?
One quick question. How many interviews did you cover?
11.
11 altogether?
Yeah.
Anything for open forum?
Sorry, I went out of order.
No. No open forum, and motion to be made to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Commissioner Brown makes a motion, second by myself. All in favor, say aye.
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 Want to stay here, say no.
Oh, we beat the horse.
Recording